All right, everybody can hear me? So let's review where we've come in emotionally healthy relationships. In session one, we began with the community temperature reading. Session two, we did the stop mind reading and clarify expectations. Then in session three, we did genogram your family, then explore the iceberg. And the last session was listen incarnationally. And this session builds on all of those previous skills, and it's a little bit more challenging, called climbing the ladder of integrity. And this is used when something is bothering you, when you have experienced tension with someone, you find yourself maybe frustrated, bothered, or hurt. And oftentimes it's due to the fact that something important or something you valued has been violated. So the purpose of the ladder is to clarify your values by processing your thoughts and feelings, and if necessary, to assert yourself respectfully. So here are some examples of what you would use the ladder of integrity for. Every time you're out to dinner with your friend, they take a phone call. It's getting to you, but you're not sure whether you have the right to say something. You have a family member who tells racist jokes and it really bothers you, but you don't know how to address it. Maybe you have a friend and you call them, but they never call you. And you wonder, why does that aggravate me so much? A coworker continually talks negatively about another coworker, and you have this growing unease about it, but you're not sure why. Maybe your friend consistently takes needless risks when they're driving, and you have conflicting feelings about it, especially when you're in the car. Maybe you're on edge every time you call home because there's something that's going on inside of you about the way your mother or father talk to you, and it disturbs you. So the ladder of integrity is meant to help us get honest and clear about what's going on inside and to discover our values and how for you they're being violated. So once you identify why something is important to you, you can then take responsibility for it. And this takes a lot of slowing down and reflection. And that's what this ladder is all about. It's meant to help us respond respectfully based on our values, rather than merely being reactive. So it enables us to live with integrity. And what I mean by that is it's important to you on the inside, and what is important on the inside is in line with what you are living on the outside. So maybe we go back to a few of those examples. Every time you're out to dinner with a friend, they take a call. So instead of getting frustrated and saying nothing, or maybe, the tendency would be in our culture, be sarcastic and say, "Oh, nice of you to join me again." You climb the ladder and get in touch with your value of having a relationship where you can give each other your full attention. Now, about the family member who tells racist jokes, it really bothers you, but you don't know how to address it. So instead of avoiding them or saying something like, "What's your problem?" you climb the ladder and you get clear about your value for the dignity of all people. You're on edge every time you call home because there's something about the way your mother or father interacts with you that you find disturbing. So instead of making excuses of why you can't visit them or call them, you climb the ladder and realize that when your mother or father speak to you, your own sense of value and dignity feels diminished. You prefer they speak to you clearly and respectfully. So you take the time to prepare to have that conversation with them. In order to have healthy relationships with others and myself, I need to know my values. And climbing the ladder of integrity helps us move towards this healthy integration. And a lot of us don't realize how much depression and anxiety stem from living out of fear of expressing ourselves. And unfortunately, a lot of us haven't been taught how to discover and uncover our core values. And so this ladder of integrity, why it's so important is because Scripture tells us we're each uniquely created in the image of God with distinct preferences, hopes, dreams, and values. And no one else can live our life and express our values except us, myself, yourself. So climbing the ladder may sometimes involve moral issues of right and wrong. Other times, it may involve gray areas or personal preferences. In Galatians 2, like you studied, Paul's integrity caused him to confront Peter about his hypocrisy of refusing to eat with the Gentiles. It might be a moral issue, such as pornography, abusive language, anger, or stealing. Other times when we're talking about integrity, we're talking about what Romans 14 calls gray issues. So maybe preferences on what movies we watch, how far above the speed limit we're willing to go. And in Romans 14, Paul says, some consider one day more sacred than another, others consider every day alike. Everyone should be fully convinced in their own mind. So the ladder of integrity, it's not a conflict resolution skill. That's the next skill, fight cleanly. This skill is for us to clarify what's going on inside of us so we can identify our values and then, if appropriate, respectfully assert them rather than reacting or blaming others. So let's have a look at this ladder. So it starts out at the bottom, and we're expressing our values and dealing with the situation using sentence stems. So right now, the issue on my mind is I'm anxious in talking about this because my part in this is, number 3, my need in this issue is, and number 4, my feelings about this are, what my reaction tells me about this is. And so the first 4 these are what's going on inside of me, which is where we should start whenever we're dealing with an issue related to someone else. And then we move up to, the issue is important to me because I value and I violate that value when I am willing, not willing to, and one thing I could do to improve the situation is, and then the most important thing I want you to know is, and these are where we express what I value. And then we move on to number 9. I think my honest sharing will benefit our relationship by, and I hope and look forward to. And these are the areas of what I hope moving forward. And so I'm going to actually, is there an example in your notes? I'm not sure. What I'm going to do in just a bit is share one of my ladders of integrity that I had to work through this past week. And it'll give you an idea of how to complete the sentence stems, which I think can be useful when we write out our own ladder of integrity, when we're dealing with a situation. So one of the things I struggle with is having others think well of me. So I often let things slide with others when I shouldn't. And a recent example is a letter attached to a petition that was distributed among church leaders to have churches sort of deemed an essential service and removing a lot of the restrictions and having 60% capacity in our buildings. So that basically would mean all social distancing is off the table, and it creates an unsafe or it creates a great place for virus spread. And I had difficulty with the letter from how it used scripture and the social ramifications of what it was asking for. So I replied with some of my thoughts on the letter and the petition to the rest of the ministerial, along with 2 other people, one who works in the medical field and with international students. And one of the other pastors replied very negatively to mine and the 2 other people who also said they wouldn't sign it. And the assumption was that we had not read the letter and were saying no out of some other motive. And my normal response to that would have been, just disregard it. Just ignore it. But this time I couldn't. So I engaged in dialogue with this individual over it. And so I'm going to go back to the ladder of integrity graphic and just share. I'm going to go bring it backwards. Whoop. So this is my own journey just over the last week. Okay, sorry folks, just looking for another page here. So right now, and this is me in dialogue. Right now, the issue is on my mind is how you responded to me regarding the petition. The message that I told myself was that you think that I'm ignorant to the facts and content of the letter and petition. And my response to the petition was my response to the petition. Oh, hold on here. I wrote this bad. But I feel like I'm being attacked for it personally. I was just responding to the petition, not to anybody individually. So I'm anxious in talking about this because of fear for how this will shape our relationship moving forward. Then I moved on to my part in this is I could have been more specific in what my objections were towards the petition and letter. And I didn't write a lot. I just, just my major concerns, and then I sent it. My need in this issue is to let you know how important relationship is to me, and being misrepresented hurts. I also need to know how you understand the letter. And then my feelings about this are fear, because I'm not used to opposing things when others are for them. And I'm also feeling disappointed that I'm being accused of not reading the letter that went into the petition. I'm hopeful that we can continue to have honest dialogue regarding this issue. And what my reaction tells me about me is my fear tells me that too often I stay silent when I should speak up. And my disappointment tells me that I don't like it when comments are made by others that paint me in a certain light that's inaccurate. And my hope tells me that I still value this relationship. So that's what was going on inside of me. And then I moved on. This issue is important to me because I value an accurate use of the Bible, which I know you do also. I value unity even when we disagree. And I value people assuming the best of me and me assuming the best of them until proven otherwise. And I violate that value when I don't respectfully stand up for what I believe, and when I let others speak words over me that aren't true. So I'm sure we've had all that sort of experience, all of us, at some point in our lives. I am willing to try and understand your perspective in this, and I'm also willing for us to disagree on this issue. I'm not willing to have my character placed in a negative light without assumptions being checked first. And then one thing I could do to improve the situation is to speak with more clarity and gain more clarity from you. The most important thing I want you to know is how important it is for people to speak accurately about me and not assume the worst of me. And so that was what I value. And then I moved on to, I think my honest sharing will benefit our relationship by creating more understanding between us and how we can best work together as pastors. And finally, I hope and look forward to continuing dialogue on many different issues and a better openness to truly understanding each other. All right. So this was a conversation that I had this week, and it wasn't in that wooden format, but it had all of the contents of what I thought about it as I was engaging this person. And so maybe you're saying to yourself, doesn't Matthew 18:15 apply? Say if your brother or sister sins, go point out their fault just between the two of you. Again, this skill is not about confronting the other person. This skill is about getting clear within ourselves what's going on with our values. And that's why it's not uncommon to go up the ladder several times to make sure all hints of blaming have been removed. And I may have done some blaming in there. I'm not totally sure. I hope I didn't. But you often have to go through it a couple of times to go, I need to not blame them. So this is once you've gone through this and you're not blaming them, you're setting your boundaries, you're asserting yourself respectfully. That's when you know you're ready to talk to the other person. But there also may be times when, after working with a ladder and getting clear within yourself, that's just enough. You don't actually even need to talk to the person because you're like, okay, this is what I value. And it just brings clarity to the point where you go, I don't really need to deal with that. So I see the need for this ladder skill for everyone, but especially for young people who tend to say, yes to too many different things before figuring out what their values are. And significant conflict happens when we aren't aware of what we value and how what others do that bothers us impact those values. So now we're going to go into the group activity again. And I'm going to have you, actually first it's individual activity. The first is identify on page 44, identify a non-volatile issue that's bothering you. So not a really deep issue, but say someone's lateness, their cell phone use, their driving, their messiness, maybe how they use their TV or computer, texting during meals, holiday plans, lack of honesty, missing meetings. And before you start, make sure that your issue is not because of a faulty assumption. You always want to use the community temperature reading and the stop mind reading and clarify expectations before you jump to this, so that you can understand more fully what's going on. And then write down the following issue into a sentence stem. Right now, the issue on my mind is. So an example there of a disrespectful one is you don't care about beginning meetings late. That's an assumption, and it's a negative one. Respectful is right now the issue on my mind is that our meetings start later than the agreed upon time. And so it removes the attack from it. Not that the person might still feel attacked, but it removes any sense of blame from what you want to deal with. And it creates this openness to dialogue. So take about 2 minutes just to write something down. Right now, the issue on my mind is. All right, now I'm going to give you an opportunity to practice this in your groups. This will be a tougher one, and maybe you won't make it all the way up the ladder. That's okay. But what we want you to do is you want to do this with someone who you don't have the issue with, and just ask the speaker, as the speaker, ask for permission to share. Start at the bottom and go up the ladder as far as you can. And skip a sentence stem if it doesn't help you explore the issue. You're not tied to this. And then thank the listener when they're done. And as the listener, give the speaker your full attention. Do not interrupt, and just thank the speaker for sharing when he or she is done. So it's like you're doing what I just did. It won't be necessarily as thought through as what I had the opportunity to do. But let me send you off and have a go at it.